Hey guys, my name is Umo. I'm a fashion entrepreneur and pattern drafter. Welcome to University of Pattern Drafting, a channel where I share my expertise in pattern drafting and garment construction through sewing tutorials. So this video is going to be the second part in a three-part series on how to draft the patterns required for this dress. Okay, so to understand what I'm going to be doing in this video, you need to follow the link in the description box to watch the first part of this series. Okay, so I'm continuing this tutorial by drafting the pattern for my the back of the top part of my dress. So this is me marking out my shoulder to bust points, my shoulder to the under bust, and then my shoulder to waist measurement for my back. Note that the shoulder to waist measurement for the front is different from the shoulder to the waist measurement for the back. So this is me drawing out all of my horizontal lines for my vertical measurements. Okay, so I'm just labeling my lines. This is my bust point line, then that's my under bust line, and then that is my waist line. When I mean waistline, I mean the natural waistline. So take note of that. Okay, so the next thing is to draw my armhole box, and I'm doing that by to create my armhole box, doing that by marking my shoulder width as well as my armhole depth. So I have created my armhole box. So I'm just going to create my shoulder slant, which is 3/4 inches, and I'll just connect that to the edge of my pattern paper. And then to know where my princess dart point should be, I am measuring what I have left and I'm dividing that into two. Can you see? I'm marking that. Then I'm going to raise that up by 1/2 inch. Do you understand? So measure what you have left after your shoulder slant, divide that into two, and then raise it up by 1/2 inch. So this is me marking the midpoint, my apex line, which is the client's bust span divided by 2. So that was 4 inches, and I'm connecting that back to that princess that point. Can you see that? So this is pretty easy. Connecting that back to my princess that point. For the back, note that there's no dart at the arm side. So note that, but there's a dart at that waist point. So that is what I'm going to be creating. And the width of my dart is 3/4 inches on both sides of that apex line. So mark 3/4 inches and then connect that back to the apex line at the bust point. Can you see that, guys? So this is pretty easy. I'm going to use a marker to redraw that line so it's much easier to see. So this is me marking out all of my circumference measurements, taking into cognizance the width of my dart. So that's 3/4 inches on both sides of my apex line. So I'm just redrawing that just so that it is clearer. So transcribe or impute all your circumference measurements, including your 1 inch side dart, or sorry, side seam allowance. I use 1 inch. You can use whatever amount of inches you want, maybe 2 inches or 1.5 inches. So I'm also measuring my waist circumference divided by 4, which is my waist arc, and I'm imputing the 1 inch side seam allowance. I'm doing that and I'm taking into cognizance the dart. So when you are doing that, take into cognizance the dart that you have there so that it's not smaller, the pattern is not small. So I'm also going to take a back dart at my zip area, the my center back, sorry, just because the back is not straight. So that's just half an inch on my under bust line. Can you see that? And I'm just going to connect that, use a curve just to create a dot at that point, just because your back is not straight. So connect that to your bust point line with your curved ruler, and then do the same for your waistline. And do the same for your waistline. If at this point you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, guys. I would really appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to create my armhole curve, and from the points where your princess that is, just use your curved ruler to connect that to your side seam line. Can you see that? So that's basically what it is. The back is not as complex as the front is. So this is pretty easy. That is my dart, and that is just the second dart, just because the back is not straight, the back is slightly curved. So this is basically all. I'm just going ahead to create a neckline for my back, which is not really necessary, seeing as this is going to be monostrap. But the width I used here is 4 inches. The depth I used here is, I think, about maybe 1 inch or so. So this is not really necessary. You can actually skip that part. So just tracing it out just so that it's clearer for you guys. And that is basically how I drafted my back pattern, and this is what my front pattern looks like. Oh, please note that both patterns are drafted on fold. Your paper has to be on fold because we're trying to create a monostrap pattern, so we need the paper to be on fold. Your back as well as your front is supposed to be on fold. So note that this is how your front pattern should look like after you have cut it out. It should look like this. It should have that square edge at the arm side in front. It shouldn't just be a straight curve. So this is me placing both my front and my back patterns together because I want to create the monostrap pattern. So can you see that, guys? Before I do that, I'm going to reduce my shoulder width by 3/4 inch. The reason why I'm doing that is because I want the monostrap area to sit properly on the shoulder and not to drop off. So I'm reducing it by, can you see that, guys? This is for both the front and the back, 3/4 inch, and I'm just joining that back to that point where we marked for our princess that. Can you see that? Just connect it back to that point and then crop it off, just so that your arm, your monostrap sits perfectly on your shoulder and doesn't keep dropping off or falling off your shoulder. So do the same for both front and back patterns, so that's for uniformity, actually, guys. So if you haven't subscribed at this point, again, please hit the subscribe button because I share useful free sewing tutorials as well as pattern drafting tutorials on this channel regularly, so you do not want to miss that. So I'm doing the same for the back, and that's the same 3/4 inches. I'm joining that back to the point where my princess cut is. Joining that back, and then I'm going to just crop it out. And so if you notice, the front pattern is shorter than the back pattern. The reason for this is because the client's front shoulder to waist measurement for the front is shorter than the client's shoulder to waist measurement for the back. And remember that, can you see that we have a side dart in the front? To understand what I'm doing, you have to follow the link in the description box to watch the front pattern. So I'm going ahead to create my monostrap pattern, and the shoulder width that I'm using is 3 inches. I just want the monostrap part to just be just as wide as maybe 2.5 inches. So I used 3 inches. So another thing, next thing to do is to measure for on my center front, measure 4 inches down from the top of my paper, just to create a guide for my monostrap. So from the 3 inches shoulder strap width, connect that to the 4 inches neckline depth, and then connect that to your armhole. Can you see that? Just look at the way I've connected that. Just use your curved ruler to connect it that way. So just connect it to your armhole, guys. So that's basically what it is. So my monostrap pattern has kind of been created. Another thing I'm going to do is to increase my dart at that point. So I'm just increasing that princess cut dart, just so that that portion is firmer. So I increased it by, I think, 3/4 of an inch. You can use between 3/4, sorry, not 3/4, 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. Do you get? So increase it by that, just so that that point is firmer. And so that's basically that for the front pattern. I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the back. Okay, so for my back, I'm doing the same, but please note that, guys, you have to be careful about this because the patterns have to be placed right. If your markings are showing on top for your front pattern, then that means that the markings for your back should be the one directly on the table. Do you get? So if you're doing right, you have to do wrong sides together. So wrong sides of your pattern paper together, so you don't make mistakes, guys. I hope you understand this. So can you see the markings is touching the table directly? So I have the wrong sides of my pattern paper touching each other. Do you understand? So you have to be sure that you don't make that mistake. And then also when you are cutting on fabric, you have to ensure that your fabric is placed right. So I'm just going to cut the same thing. Can you see I've placed both together just so that I have an accurate thingy. So I'm just notching that point just so that it can be transcribed to my back pattern. So that I have that same exact point on my back pattern. I'm just going to go ahead and trace that out for my back pattern. So ensure that your pattern papers are placed right, guys. This is so important so that both front and back just matches with ease. Do you understand? Seamlessly. I'm just trying to cross check the measurement so that I think I used 4 inches here for the neckline width. So you can use between, depending on how deep you want the um neckline area to be, you can make it maybe between 3 inches to 6 inches, just depending on what you want. So I think I used either 4 inches or 3.5 inches. So, and I've connected that to my arm side, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut everything out. So this is me just cross-checking everything just to be sure that I haven't made any mistakes. So I'm going ahead to use my scissors to cut. I'm cutting both together actually so that it is the pattern is accurate. So can you see that, guys? So the monostrap effect has been created. So now this is a really important step. Increasing that, this is just me increasing that dot at that point, just so that that place is firm, because you know now it has been cut on bias, so it's like it's almost like your fabric would start to stretch at that point, so you have to increase your dot at that point. Okay, so I am going ahead to cut out my front pattern, but before I do that, remember the side dot. I have to eliminate that side dot. So this is me eliminating the side dot. Eliminating the side dot and cutting out the extra 3/8 inches that we have on that side panel. If you to understand what I'm saying here, you have to go back and watch the part 1 of this tutorial. And so I'm just going to, I've eliminated it, so I'm just going to use my paper tape to hold that down. So now I'm cutting out all of the dots, guys. Can you see? So the shaded area is actually the dot, the shaded areas are actually all my dots. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut everything out. So this is what I have. I have to create a side panel for the other side that has the monostrap, guys. So can you see, this is me trying to create the side dot, because that portion was not marked with biro, so I have to create that. Can you see? So this is me trying to create that. I'm reopening that side dot so that I can just have, yes, an accurate pattern on that side, guys. So this is me trying to just do that. So I have to put my pattern back together so that I have an accurate pattern for my side panel, sorry. So just go ahead and trace that out, and you're going to have to be doing the same thing for the back. I should actually have done this before cutting it out, actually. So if you have the opportunity to do that before cutting out the side, go ahead and do that so that you don't have to struggle this way. So now this is my side panel for the side that has the monostrap. Do you understand? So we have 3 panel pieces here for the front, 3 pattern pieces here for the front that are actually different, and you're going to have to be cutting one of each. Do you understand? For the main fabric and also for the lining fabric, depending on if you're lining. So it's going to be the same thing for the back. It's just that the back is going to have 4 pattern pieces because of the zip. So I also have to create the side darts for this other side panel. Do you understand? So everything just rhymes. So this is me creating a side dart for the side panel for the side that has the monostrap, guys. I hope you understand this. It's not complicated, so I'm sure this is pretty easy to understand. If you haven't subscribed at this point, guys, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So this is what my front pattern looks like. Sorry, this is my back pattern. Sorry. Okay, so I'm doing the same form. Okay, I've gone ahead to cut out my back pattern, guys. So this is what it looks like. Can you see this? So I did the same thing that I did for the front, for the back, and this is what we have, guys. So remember, when you're cutting, the back has to be divided into 2, so take note of that. And this is my front, guys. So can you see? the side that is eliminated for both side panels. Can you see? So this is basically what we have. So you should be cutting one of each of these pattern pieces for both the main fabric as well as the lining fabric. So also note that this is really important. All of your markings should be on the top. Do you get? So when you are cutting, you do not make mistakes. So this is basically this end of the second part. The third part is going to be on, okay, so this is the skirt pattern. Actually gone ahead to draft the skirt pattern. To understand what I did here, you can also follow the link in the description box to watch my tutorial on how to draft pencil skirt, guys. Thanks for watching.